Bahama building goes up in flames. Find out more in the Bahamas tonight.
Also ahead, how to spur the country's second largest economy. The Prime Minister gives some ideas.
And we honor one of our own. The Bahamas Tonight, the National Report, starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
A business establishment on West Bay Street goes up in flames just after 4 o'clock this morning. Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Andrew Knowles. Tonight, Janaea Noel Ferguson tells us that firefighters worked well into the morning to extinguish that blaze that threatened nearby residences.
Fire Services Chief Superintendent Walter Evans says several crews had to battle that blaze to ensure that it did not spread to neighboring buildings.
It was immediately controlled and extinguished. We recognized that this morning there was a moderate gust of wind here at this facility, and there was a threat to a building which is a condominium structure, two-story facility which is located on the eastern side. There was some immediate threat, and so we had to perform a strategy to ensure that the fire did not spread in that direction. At this point, we do not have any indication as to why this fire took place this morning, and an investigation is being launched into this incident.
Now, as you can see behind me, firefighters had to use a nearby pool for water to out the blaze.
Not being the case, we would have had to go into a situation where our trucks would have been emptied. We would have had to travel probably about a quarter mile up the street, and then we had to fill up our trucks again with the water pressure. This would have been the most strategic and the most logical thing to do, was extract water from the swimming pool, and it was readily available. It's an open swimming pool, and so it came into good use for us this morning.
Evans said although there was no need to evacuate the residential facility nearby, it was considered because strong winds made the task difficult for firefighters. And now during the holiday season, the fire chief is reminding residents to secure their homes and properties. He also shared some safety tips.
For people who do cooking, there are some items which will take significantly longer than others in terms of completion. We want to say to them to do not go to sleep, do not leave those items, do not leave the cooking ranges unattended.
Investigations into the cause of Friday's fire continue. Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
The government's looking to infiltrate an age-old tradition in the nation's second city by playing a greater role in the decision-making in the port-controlled city of Freeport.
This as the government pursues an economic turnaround. Clint Watson has the story.
Prime Minister Perry Christie and his administration have been working around the clock to drive significant investments to Grand Bahama with hopes of resuscitating this economy that's been dormant for years. Key to shifting the economic climate in Grand Bahama is shifting the seat of authority from the Grand Bahama Port Authority.
We expect and would want to be much more involved in Grand Bahama, and the decisions we have to make with respect to 2015 will enable us, I think, to bring about a deeper involvement on the part of the government of the Bahamas in the affairs of Freeport.
The Prime Minister says 2015 will be a big year for Grand Bahama in relation to real property tax. Mr. Christie says the government is looking at its relationship with the Grand Bahama Port Authority when it comes to major investors on Grand Bahama.
The government is committed to ensuring that we work more closely with them, in tandem with them, and it really means that that we ought to be able to sit with them as we're now doing, with a view to working out a more accommodating kind of approach to the economy.
The issue of government's involvement in the control of Freeport and how much power the port authority should maintain has always been a contentious debate. But with the Hawkesville Agreement still in effect, there's skepticism on how much of a role government can play. However, Prime Minister Christie says he's optimistic they can still make inroads.
I have a very, very specific view about Grand Bahama that I have advanced to certain movers and shakers in Grand Bahama about the extent to which the government ought to be involved down there.
The Hawksbill Creek Agreement is an agreement with a 99-year lifespan expiring in 2054. However, that date could be misleading as some benefits expired in 1990, such as exemption from real property tax, personal property tax, capital gains taxes, taxes on shares and earnings. However, that same year, in a private arrangement between the government and the Grand Bahama Port Authority, these benefits were reinstated and extended to 2015.
Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
Court of Appeal President Justice Anita Allen was among women jurists from around the world attending the recent Women and Justice Conference and Senior Roundtable on Women in the Judiciary at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The conference served to raise awareness of preventing violence against women and punishing perpetrators. Justice Allen says the conference heightened her awareness of gender bias, which allowed her, among other things, to learn about the international resources available for judicial research and training on the topic. The defense is expected to open its case on Monday in the manslaughter trial of Police Corporal Nathaniel Charlo. Charlo is accused of killing Deron Bethel during a police-involved shooting in Pinewood Gardens back on March 27, 2006. The officer who charged Charlo shortly after the incident, ASP Kimroy Ferguson, testified that about 2 months later, while in the interview room at the Central Detective Unit, the accused indicated in a police report that the incident unfolded shortly after he and 2 other officers went to the home of Warren Roll in Pinewood Gardens to investigate a complaint. Ferguson said Charlo indicated that as he and the officers pulled up to Roll's house, they shouted police. And that's when Bethel, who was at Roll's house at the time, ran to his Honda Accord, jumped inside and locked the doors. Shortly afterwards, Ferguson said Charlo indicated that the Honda lurched forward, then Bethel put it in reverse, and in doing so, it swung toward Charlo, who jumped out of the way. And that's when Charlo, who was in fear for his life, fired a shot from his police-issued revolver. Ferguson said he was told that Bethel continued reversing down the street and crashed near a park. He later died at the scene.
In our first look at weather, an area of high pressure continues to generate moderate breezes around the islands, but outside of our studios we have just a few clouds, temperatures 77 degrees, relative humidity 74%. Your winds out of the east at 10 knots, your barometric pressure 1,020.1 millibars, that's 30.12 inches, and it is steady. But stay tuned, temperatures around the family of islands, travel and boating forecast is still to come.
Well, still ahead tonight, find out why this lady is getting all these awards.
And the CR Walker Knights tells us the secret to getting back on top in Junkanoo. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Shell Helix Ultra. Performance you can see.